And thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. The Trump administration is moving swiftly to address the growing nuclear threat from North Korea. In a rare move, the White House invited all 100 U.S. senators to a briefing Wednesday and then announced a tightening of sanctions on the country. Heather Sells has more on the story.
The White House bussed all 100 senators down Pennsylvania Avenue for the rare meeting. The Secretaries of State and Defense and other top officials briefed the senators on the urgent situation in North Korea.
This is the sort of moment that needs to be above partisanship. And
the military is obviously planning for a number of contingencies, a number of options, as well they should.
The U.S. has moved an anti-missile defense system into place 150 miles south of Seoul in South Korea. Residents there have protested, worried they'll become a target. Admiral Harry Harris defended the move in a House committee hearing Wednesday,
which will be operational in the coming days and able to better defend South Korea.
The U.S. also announced Wednesday that it is tightening sanctions on North Korea and will step up diplomatic moves to pressure the country to give up its nuclear and missile programs. Although sanctions are the main focus of U.S. strategy, there are signs that the president is considering using military force if all other options fail to disarm the country. But so far, North Korea has remained defiant. It has threatened to sink the USS Carl Vinson and has vowed to continue its missile launches.
With every test, Kim Jong-un moves closer to his stated goal of a preemptive nuclear strike capability against American cities.
Hawaii said Harris is clearly vulnerable right now, adding that more may need to be done to protect the island state. Heather Sells, CBN News.
President Trump has told Canadian and Mexican leaders he will not pull out of the North American Free Trade Agreement and he will look to renegotiate it instead. The announcement came hours after the administration said the president was considering a draft executive order to pull out. The White House is now working toward renegotiation. President Trump added the decision will, quote, make all three countries stronger and better. Just days before reaching his 100th day in office, President Trump is delivering a gift to taxpayers. The president released an outline of his tax reform plan. It is designed to reduce taxes across the board and make filing your taxes a whole lot easier. White House correspondent Jennifer Wishon has more on this story.
80 years ago, Americans only had to deal with a one-page tax form with 24 lines and only a few instructions. Today, the form has 79 lines and more than 200 pages of instructions. President Trump's plan promises to greatly simplify the tax code and much more.
We're going to cut taxes for businesses to make them competitive, and we're going to cut taxes for the American people, especially low and middle income families.
The plan reduces 7 personal tax brackets to 3 of 10, 25, and 35%, lowers the business tax rate to 15%, erases all personal tax deductions except for charitable giving and mortgage interest, gets rid of the alternative minimum tax, and once and for all, eliminates the estate tax.
We're going to double the standard deduction, so that a married couple won't pay any taxes on the first $24,000 of income they earn.
But some Republicans who ran on reducing the national debt and deficit fear the president's plan further complicates the situation. Senior administration officials say those fears won't be realized.
This will pay for itself with growth and with reduction of different deductions and closing loopholes.
The gritty details are still being worked out, but through tax cuts and reform, cutting federal regulations, and repealing and replacing Obamacare, the president believes the nation can return to the historic average of 3% annual growth, something President Obama was never able to achieve. Republicans are making another promise as well.
And we will have an IRS that exists only to serve the taxpayer.
In a sign of unity, House and Senate leaders and their Money Committee chairman issued a joint statement writing, "With an eye toward fairness and simplicity, we're confident we can rebuild our tax code in a way that will grow our economy, better promote savings and investment, provide our job creators with a competitive advantage, and bring prosperity to all Americans." But Democrats are attacking the plan. Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey, a Democrat who sits on the Senate Finance Committee, calls the president's plan a massive tax giveaway to millionaires, billionaires, and big corporations at the expense of middle-class families. And those Democratic criticisms could mean Republicans will be on their own when it comes to passing the biggest attempt at tax reform and tax cuts since Ronald Reagan did it more than 30 years ago. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
And here's a quick look at what the president has done in his first 100 days in office with the help of the Republican-controlled House and Senate. Congress has sent 29 bills to the president's desk. House Speaker Paul Ryan says that is the highest number of bills for a president's first 100 days in office since 1949. Nearly half of the bills focus on reducing regulations to grow the economy. GOP leadership estimates that will mean $67 billion in savings for families and businesses. But there are still many more things still to come on the GOP's agenda. That includes tax reform, replacing Obamacare, repealing the Johnson Amendment, and defunding Planned Parenthood. The media reporter for The Washington Post tells CBN News despite President Trump's criticism of the mainstream media, he actually likes them and loves the attention. Trump has called the mainstream press the enemy of the American people, and many conservatives agree. But media reporter Paul Farhi says The Washington Post says there's more to the story. He spoke with CBN's David Brody.
This has been a bit of a roller coaster. What is your sense of this relationship that we're seeing play out between Trump and the media?
Well, I think Trump makes a very big show of disliking us, disrespecting us, and disparaging us. But in fact, I think secretly, or maybe not so secretly, he really likes us, loves the attention, has used that attention for his own advancement, and has really courted the media in a lot of ways. And I'll also say all of his criticism has raised the profile of the media and specific media outlets. The New York Times subscriptions are up, Washington Post subscriptions are up, ratings are up for all the TV networks, news networks. And so in some ways it's been actually quite good for us.
I was going to say good for business. Trump's good for business.
It kind of is, yes. I think that's true.
Farhi also told CBN News he believes Trump's decision to give conservative media outlets more access is a good thing because it will hold him accountable with his base. United Airlines just announced it will raise the limit to $10,000 when it comes to paying customers who give up their seats on oversold flights. They're also increasing training for employees as they deal with the fallout from the video of a passenger that was violently dragged from his seat. The airline is also promising to reduce overbooking. They have not mentioned a decline in sales since their passengers incident, but the CEO says it could be damaging. Pro-life activists put together a vivid visual on Capitol Hill Wednesday. As Paul Strand reports, it was a graphic and winsome way to remind Congress what's really at stake in the battle against abortion: little lives.
Everyone's here, yeah. Pro-lifers poured the contents of basket after basket of socks onto a huge pile just a few yards from where Congress meets. These pro-lifers brought some 200,000 baby socks to Capitol Hill. Here's why.
We are here representing the number of lives that Planned Parenthood takes every year, and this is only a little bit more than half. So they take 323,999 lives every year through abortion.
It's just a devastatingly large number, and we need to have images like this so that people start to reflect on the magnitude of the suffering that's happening out there.
Students for Life of America organized this event aimed at getting Congress to get off its collective duff and defund Planned Parenthood, America's largest abortion provider.
Today, Planned Parenthood will receive more than $1 million from us, and they will kill 888 children. That is the reality of our inaction.
The message with all these baby socks and all these pro-lifers is, Congress, you can defund Planned Parenthood, and you can do it now. Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
He is a North Carolina congressman, and he holds the keys to getting bills passed in Washington. CBN News sits down with the leader of the Freedom Caucus, Mark Meadows, next. Congressman Mark Meadows could hold the key to getting things done in Washington, and the president is looking for his approval to push forward his agenda. David Brody brings us the story.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Meadows.
He looks so unassuming, a mild-mannered evangelical congressman from North Carolina, married to the same woman for nearly 40 years. But looks can be deceiving. Mark Meadows is a major power player in Washington.
We are standing in the fight with you.
It is time that we make sure they feel the heat.
We're ready to take back our country.
Meadows leads the Freedom Caucus, a group of 30-plus House conservatives that can make or break a president's agenda. Last month, Meadows and his merry men stood in firm opposition against the GOP leadership in the White House, demanding a better health care bill. And President Trump wasn't happy.
President Trump is up and tweeting this morning, and it's about you.
The presidential tweet read, "If Rep. Mark Meadows would get on board, we would have both great health care and massive tax cuts and reform." How has it felt as the leader of the Freedom Caucus in general, to kind of be this punching bag, if you will, in the media and honestly, sometimes on President Trump's Twitter feed, you can do a lot of damage in 140 characters.
I don't take his tweets as personal. You know, they're part of the negotiation, part of getting people to move to get to a yes. Being a punching bag is difficult because sometimes the narratives are just not true.
The narrative on Meadows and the Freedom Caucus, too rigid and demanding.
There's been talk about us moving the goalposts. Well, we have. We've moved it closer to a solution, not further away.
While the verdict is still out on whether the group's tactics will lead to a better health care bill, most agree that Meadows is a tough negotiator who likes a challenge. That could be because he's faced them before. As a high school sophomore, he weighed in at about 240 pounds and stood just 5'4". 2 years later, a better diet and exercise helped him lose more than 50 pounds.
Anybody who has looked at their weight and struggled with their weight, it doesn't define who I am, but it certainly, you can feel the scars of, wanting to be accepted, hearing people talk about you.
They're sure talking about him today. Look for him to be at the center of any key issue, like the upcoming tax reform negotiation. Meadows will be the one ensuring President Trump and GOP leadership stay true to conservative principles. And those who stray know he can be a thorn in their side. In 2015, Meadows pushed to remove John Boehner as Speaker. And before that, he played a key role in shutting down the federal government. He knows the D.C. knives will come out against him again, but Meadows walks by faith, accompanied by solid approval numbers as well in his home district.
When you have a faith in your Lord, when you have the backing of literally thousands of friends, it does your heart good.
And his heart tries to draw closer to the Lord every day.
I have a quiet time every morning, and so I'm in the scriptures on a daily basis.
He'll need it. While he may have walked away from the healthcare fight with bruises, Meadows believes patience helped in that situation. Ironically, that was the exact topic in Bible study at the time.
Patience is not a virtue that comes easily to me, but it's been to wait upon the Lord, and so as I see that has been reminded over and over and over again, and it's confirmed over a dozen different places whether it's in Scripture or by other people sharing encouraging thoughts, that's where it's been.
But Meadows knows it will take more than patience and encouragement to help him deal with the pressure that constant media attention can bring.
What I hope that I've been able to portray is a real humble spirit in everything that I do, because this is not about me. It's not about really the Freedom Caucus. It's about the people of this great country that God has blessed.
The question now, will Meadows, the Freedom Caucus, and the White House be blessed with legislative compromises that will determine the future of the Republican Party? David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Up next, bringing the Bible to the main stage, we've got a sneak peek at a new show heading to Sight and Sound Theater and a theater near you. The story of Jonah is a Bible classic being brought to life on the main stage at Sight and Sound Theater in Pennsylvania. And next week, you'll be able to sample the larger-than-life production at a theater near you. I traveled to Lancaster to bring you a behind-the-scenes look at the show in this Studio 5 First Look.
On a cornfield in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, sits a massive theater that's drawn crowds by the busloads for 41 years.
In that 41 years, we've had roughly 22 million people come through our doors at Sight and Sound.
We're visiting Sight and Sound just hours before opening night of the new season.
It never gets old sitting here talking to people the day before an opening.
The simple way to say it is we bring the Bible to life, but that's really what we do.
We are storytellers, and we want to move people's hearts towards truth through the power of story.
There's a beautiful buzz of excitement in the air, even before the cast takes the stage for...
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, Jonah!
Tonight's returning show.
Jonah is one of, it's a family favorite for kids. There's just nothing quite like the story of the whale.
There are many moving parts in any Sight and Sound production. I'm actually seated aboard one of them. This is used in the production of Jonah. There are actually 4 of them, each operated by the actor by a remote control hidden just in here.
Take these stories out of the Bible and we bring them to life on stage. And we tell them in a really large, epic scale. And the reason we do that is not big for big's sake. It's just we love to immerse people in the story and to experience what it may have felt like.
This isn't just a job. It's a family mission run by people whose own lives have been changed by the work they do.
22 years ago, I was scouting out film schools because I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I just had become a Christian at the time. I was 6 months. My mom, she knew that I wanted to be in the industry somehow. And she said, hey, there's a theater down the road called Sight and Sound. She said, why don't we check it out? I said, Mom, I'm not versed in theater. I don't know anything about theater, She said, well, let's just go take a look. So my mom actually lined it up for me to come down here and get an interview. So it was August of 1995. My mom and I stood in the back of the entertainment center and opened the doors, and I looked across the auditorium and I saw Noah's Ark being built, with a full audience. I'm thinking, what is this place? This is not what I was expecting. And I was hooked. I thought, I think storytelling on stage is exciting and interesting, and I became a stage technician. And so I started by pushing sets around backstage.
Never made it to film school.
Never made it to film school. Maybe there's a chapter 2 to this whole thing. I don't know. We'll see.
But Sight and Sound is getting into the movie business, at least for one night, bringing the larger-than-life immersion to a movie house near you.
In the theater, you're there, and the whale is literally going over your head, and it's happening all around you. However, on the movie screen, the cameras are able to get angles that you can't see from your actual seat in the theater. So you get to see the actors' facial expressions and the detailing in the costumes and the set pieces.
And you can catch Jonah at a theater near you for one night only, Tuesday, May 2nd. Beyond that, you can see the show at Sight and Sound through October 14th. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Communities throughout eastern Ukraine are desperate to end the conflict with Russia. Recent winter months brought bitter cold weather to the region. So in an effort to bring joy to Ukraine's children of war, Orphans Promise has partnered with Mercy Corps to launch several children's clubs. Kids who attend find warm, safe environments where they can make friends, learn skills, and hear about the love of God. They are also provided with a trusted place for parents to send their children and a welcome distraction from the war. It is time now for your Thursday Thankful. It is a weekly prayer of gratitude. I hope you'll join me in this. Father, I'm thankful for the people you've placed in my life to specifically pull me through troubled times. They are your hands and feet and are blessings beyond measure. With that word, make this a thankful Thursday. That is a wrap for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about always at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. This is Thursday. Make it a thankful one. We'll see you right back here come tomorrow. God bless.